yourself a new heart and a new spirit. Ezekiel 18:31. Minutes after a bomb exploded in the Alfred B. Murrah Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City on April 19, 1995, an Oklahoma woman phoned her sister in North Carolina to share the terrible news. "Oh," her sister responded, "can you imagine the angels that were there?" It wasn't the kind of reaction one would expect in the midst of tragedy. Positive points of view, if there are any, usually emerge days or even months later, when dust has settled and people have moved beyond those first shocking moments. But the woman in North Carolina was seeing past the immediate horror into a spiritual realm where even the most terrible happenings can be turned into good. A few days later, the sisters heard about a woman who had been preparing food for a funeral luncheon at her church west of Oklahoma City when the explosion occurred. She packed everything into her car to bring to the disaster scene some 20 miles away, and as she drove onto an overpass, she had a view of the city. The hair stood on the back of her neck. A gigantic cloud hung over the skyline, filled with hundreds of angels. She could clearly see them, all facing west, trailing long, graceful wings, angels standing silent vigil over the ruins, confirming the revelation of the woman from North Carolina. A week after the World Trade Center explosions, word circulated that a trumpeter was playing at Ground Zero. A well-known photographer went to see for himself. In the eerie quiet of lower Manhattan, he could hear the notes as he approached a barricade. The trumpeter stood in this urban canyon, illuminated by shafts of light caused by the smoke and dust. Who was he? In a place of such intense security, how could a lone musician be allowed behind police lines? Looking through his lens, framing the unlikely stranger amid the rays, the photographer realized that this was the photo of a lifetime. "But I couldn't depress the shutter," he said. He lowered the camera in defeat. His colleagues reported the same phenomenon. Apparently, no one could snap a picture. "Maybe he's an angel," one suggested. Mark Judelson, executive director of the Arts Council of Rockland, New York, was struck by this event and has written and performed a mini play about it. Today, he says, "I think the trumpeter was the angel Gabriel. With his music, he blessed the sight of carnage and taught us to accept loss." Who could have imagined a few decades ago, speaking of angels in such a matter-of-fact conversation, allowing these heavenly beings into our lives as mysterious intercessors, cherished companions, dependable protectors? But since the early 1990s, when angels made somewhat of a popular comeback, books, movies, stores, and even Time and Newsweek cover stories have focused on them not as myth, but as a unique part of God's creation. Perhaps at this uncertain moment in history, they are needed more than ever. Peter Kreeft, an angelologist, author, and professor at Boston College, has observed that angels appear on the brink of chaos or catastrophe, or at least the threat of chaos or catastrophe. They are spiritual soldiers in the great cosmic jihad, the spiritual war between good and evil. Upon reflection, he says, it seems not such a strange idea. Doesn't there often seem to be an unknown, unpredictable, invisible factor in history, especially in times of physical or spiritual conflict, culture wars, or spiritual warfare? Perhaps the emergence of angels in the public consciousness during the 1990s was intended to be that invisible factor, a merciful heavenly preparation for the difficult events that were to come. As we travel this challenging journey, we are not alone. As we have learned, angels go alongside us. These marvelous beings created at the beginning of time are greater in power and might than any human. Just 2 angels were sent to destroy all of Sodom and Gomorrah. Nonetheless, angels are concerned with every facet of our well-being. An angel even brought food to the prophet Elijah, advising Elijah that he would be of no use to the Lord if he was exhausted. Angels convey messages, they warn us, and probably run interference with our conscience, prompting us to choose good over evil and strengthening us in times of temptation. Moreover, because they act only on God's authority and within His plan for us, God has promised us their aid. See, I'm sending an angel before you to guard you on the way and bring you to the place I have prepared. Be attentive to him and heed his voice. Do not rebel against him, for my authority resides in him. Exodus chapter 23, verse 20 through 21. What a great gift! How foolish we would be to disregard it. Of course, an angel's role is not always to lift our burden. Recall that during Christ's suffering in the Garden of Gethsemane, an angel was sent to strengthen him, not to take the anguish away. Sometimes angels simply walk with us through our distress, bringing their glory and grace to bear on whatever hardships we face, helping us lift our eyes from the event at hand to the will of God behind the event. Perhaps what we need most in the present uncertain climate is the comfort of angels. Stories about comfort abound. One hospital patient explains, "I felt a warmth come over me, as if the angels were all around. In the midst of my fear, I was flooded with reassurance. Whatever tomorrow's surgery revealed, I would handle it." Describing a chance encounter with an unusual street person, a teenager recounts, "His eyes were full of love. All my worry disappeared. I thought, if God loves me, then why should I be upset about stuff I can't control, like bombs?" Such episodes of care, reassurance, blessing, and love are balm to our shaken spirits as we come to understand that God's promise is the only one worth counting on. His path is the true way to peace. Look back at the coincidences in your life with new eyes. Hasn't God been with you every step of your journey, even though you might not have recognized him? Hasn't he sent help and consolation in trying times, healed your broken heart, brought certain people into your life at the perfect moment? Could some of those people have been angels in disguise? Why should it be any different today than it was in biblical times? The future holds excitement and opportunity. We may grow inwardly in new ways, emerge stronger, holier, and more interested in ministering to the needs of others than to ourselves. We may learn that the people in our lives are far more important than any personal achievement or possession. The Rabbi Harold Kushner once observed that all the complicated structures we spend so much time and energy creating are built on sand. Only our relationships to other people endure. Sooner or later, the wave will come along and knock down what we have worked so hard to build up. When that happens, only the person who has someone's hand to hold will be able to laugh. As the people whose stories are in this book have learned, we need not fear the future, for we have God's hand to hold. He has given us everything we need. Peace, hope, and comfort abide in his arms and in the arms of angels. I hope you've enjoyed this little introduction about angels, and I look forward to coming again on Tuesday and sharing with you the story entitled Gage's Girls. Until then, I will see you for the next angel story.